Okay, my name is Amanda Garcia, and I'm going to be focusing on the topic of projectile motion with the help of Asher, Cuddy, aka Chris, and Millie, and Dino.
Okay, it'll be...
So the definition of projectile motion is the path or motion of a body in the air that creates that arc or parabola that we all know and love. So the path that this body in the air takes is controlled by two external forces, gravity obviously being the main one because that's going to be that force, that downward force, bringing it back down to the earth after it's being launched into the air by a specific velocity at a specific height. The other one being air resistance, which we don't in class take into account. And the motion that comes out of the projectile motion, this force of an object being thrown into the air, is going to be that arc, that parabolic motion of being launched with the velocity and then the gravity pulling it back down. So here you can see that parabolic motion, the arc that projectiles go into as Cuddy is thrown into the air, peaks right there at the top and then comes straight back down in that U-shape, parabola shape. And here we have another example of this as Asher takes his turn to fly through the air. You can clearly see that like U-shape once he leaves my arms, peaks at the top, then comes straight back down to form that parabola. So we'll go through each factor that affects a parabolic path one by one. So the first being the projection velocity that the object is launched off at. So here's an example of a high velocity throw versus a low velocity throw. Millie being just dropped because Miranda did not throw her hard at all, and then Cuddy being absolutely launched through the air because Jaden threw him really hard. Okay, so the next factor affecting it is the projection angle. So obviously if I throw him at an angle that's upward, he's gonna go more like this. And if I throw him more downward, he's just gonna kind of go like this. So the more downward angle, it could literally just be like down like this. Let go, please. Please let go. And then the more outward angle, like a more upward angle, would be like this. So basically the angles are kind of like, this would be a wider angle of being launched, and this would be like a smaller angle of being launched. So it would more go straight up compared to being like a soft outward across, you know. And the last factor affecting parabolic path is projection height. So obviously if I toss Cuddy from this height, it's a little different from his parabolic motion is going to be a little bit different from that height than from, say, the top of my porch, which you're not going to do. So obviously, if I throw an animal from right here, it's just going to go down to the ground, so it's less of an arc. But if you throw an animal from, say, the ottoman, which I will demonstrate shortly, and if I throw Chris from up here, it's going to be a much bigger parabola than from the ground, like the dog. And the dog also had legs hanging, so it was a lower drop. I don't know if that's biomechanics, but. So with the projection height, it's kind of an obvious difference, but you have to make sure to take that into account when doing calculations. But say something like, ignore the top ones, but coming from a cliff, say, like we always said in class, you have that parabola coming all the way back down to the ground, whereas coming from the ground, you have more of a full parabola. So overall, that's projectile motion and my understanding of it from class. It's something that is seen literally everywhere in life, and especially in sports. Throwing a football, hitting a baseball, cliff jumping, shooting a basketball, hitting a golf ball. Almost all sports include something that will include projectile motion. And for me, that was the cats. Also, I should add that no cats were harmed in the making of this film. They're all happy and safe.